The crimson sand of Velcor Prime shifted beneath Lyra Vance's boots as she stumbled, her hand pressed firmly against the plasma burn searing through her left side. The ambush had come without warning, raiders from the outer reaches, desperate and vicious. She'd held them off long enough for the distress beacon to activate, but not without cost. Behind her, in the makeshift shelter she'd carved from the canyon wall, 17 pairs of eyes watched with predatory focus. Not human eyes. These belonged to the Scarith cubs, apex predators whose adult forms could tear through reinforced steel with their crystalline claws. Their parents had perished in a territorial conflict 3 months prior, and Lyra had found them starving, defenseless, barely old enough to hunt. Against all protocol, against every regulation in the Frontier Settlement Charter, she'd taken them in. Now, as her vision blurred and her legs threatened to give way, Lyra tried to stand. The world tilted dangerously. She couldn't show weakness. Not here. Not on a planet where weakness meant death, where the strong devoured the weak without hesitation. If the cubs sensed her vulnerability, instinct might override the fragile bond they'd built. She gritted her teeth and pushed herself upright, her prosthetic left leg, a reminder of another battle, another world whirring softly as its servos compensated for her failing strength. Blood seeped between her fingers, dark against her tactical suit. "Stay back," she managed, her voice hoarse but commanding. They didn't listen. Corin moved first. The eldest of the cubs, barely 4 months old but already the size of a full-grown earth wolf, launched himself from the shadows. His scales shimmered like polished obsidian in the dual sunset. And his eyes, those terrifying amber eyes that glowed with bioluminescent intensity, fixed on Lyra with unwavering determination. She tensed, expecting teeth, expecting claws. Instead, Corin pressed his armored shoulder against her right side, supporting her weight with surprising gentleness. A low rumble emanated from his chest, not a growl of aggression, but something else. Something almost protective. Then the others came. They poured from the shelter in a coordinated rush that would have been coordinated predatory behavior in any other context. But they weren't attacking. A smaller cub, Vess, positioned herself on Lyra's left side, careful to avoid the wound. 2 more cubs braced themselves behind her legs, preventing her from falling backward. Another tucked itself beneath her extended hand, creating a living crutch. Within seconds, Lyra was surrounded by a moving scaffold of scales, claws, and chitinous armor, all working in perfect synchronization to keep her upright. "What are you?" she whispered, stunned. Her hand found Corin's neck ridge, fingers curling into the warm grooves between his scales. The cub leaned into her touch. The Scarith were supposed to be incapable of empathy. Every xenobiological study confirmed it. They were pure predators, driven by hunger and territorial dominance. The Galactic Council had classified them as Category 7 dangerous, unsuitable for any form of domestication or alliance. Yet here they were, 17 cubs who should have torn her apart the moment she showed injury, instead holding her up with a tenderness that defied everything humanity thought it knew about them. Lyra's legs finally gave out. But she didn't fall. The cubs adjusted instantly, lowering her gently to the sand while maintaining their protective circle. Corin remained pressed against her side, his body heat seeping through her suit, steadying her as shock began to set in. Good cubs," she murmured, her free hand reaching out to stroke another scaled head. The cub, Tiri, she'd named him, leaned into her palm with a soft chirp. In the 3 months since she'd found them, Lyra had fed them, taught them to hunt, nursed them through illness and injury. She'd sung them earth songs when the planet's violent storms frightened them. She'd held them when they cried out for parents who would never return. She'd defended them against scavengers and rival predators, taking wounds that never quite healed. She'd given them everything a mother would give, human or otherwise. And they remembered. Corin's rumble deepened, and the other cubs took up the sound, creating a resonant harmony that vibrated through the air. It was a call, the Scarith distress signal that adult packs used to summon aid. They were calling for help. For her. Tears stung Lyra's eyes. Though whether from pain or emotion, she couldn't tell. "I'm okay," she lied softly, running her fingers along Corin's jaw ridge. "I'll be okay." The cub looked at her with those impossibly intelligent eyes, and Lyra could have sworn she saw understanding there. Disbelief at her words, determination to prove her wrong. 3 of the smaller cubs broke from the circle and vanished into the canyon, moving with purpose. Hunting, she realized. They were hunting for her, bringing back sustenance the way she'd taught them to provide for each other. The medical kit was 30 meters away, inside the shelter. Lyra tried to gesture toward it, but Corin was already moving. He'd learned where she kept the supplies, had watched her treat injuries a dozen times. He loped toward the shelter and returned moments later, dragging the kit carefully in his jaws. Vess positioned herself at Lyra's wounded side and began to gently lick the area around the burn, her saliva containing natural antibacterial enzymes. Lyra had studied their biology extensively. She knew the gesture was both practical and deeply social. It was what Scarith did for pack members, family members. As Lyra fumbled with the medical kit, her hands steadier now thanks to the emergency stimulant she'd injected, she felt the weight of what was happening. These creatures, bred by evolution to be perfect killers, had chosen something else. They'd chosen her. They'd chosen compassion over instinct, loyalty over survival. Humanity had spent centuries believing they were alone in their capacity for love, for sacrifice, for family bonds that transcended biology. They were wrong. Corin pressed his forehead against Lyra's cheek, his rumbling purr a steady comfort as she worked to seal the wound. Around her, the other cubs maintained their vigil, eyes scanning the canyon for threats, bodies positioned in a defensive perimeter. "You're good cubs," Lyra whispered again, her voice breaking. "The best I could have ever hoped for." And in that moment, bleeding on an alien world, surrounded by creatures that should have been her death, Lyra Vance understood a fundamental truth. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology, their adaptability, or their stubborn refusal to die. It was their ability to see family where others saw only monsters, and to teach even monsters how to love.